Hi everyone, welcome to the Caribbean Skeptic Sectors channel. And today we are talking about discarding the holy pill of faith. And we have with us Vanessa Marie, who is going to share how she discarded that holy pill of faith. Welcome, Marie.
Hi, thank you for having me back on here again. So glad to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Um, yeah, so Um, Vanessa, tell us a little bit about your childhood coming up. Was it part of were you taken to church, taken to Sunday school by your parents? What was that childhood like in that way? In addition to religion?
Yeah, so I grew up with both of my parents are Christians. My dad is Seven-day Adventist, and my
Mhm.
mom is she started off Catholic, so I was baptized as a baby because she was Catholic before, and then
Uh-huh.
um, she started going to. She's gone through phases, so she went to Seven-day Adventist for a while with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
ended up in a non-denominational church, and I
Okay.
pretty much grew up going with her most of
Mm-hmm.
the time. I went sometimes with my dad on Saturdays,
Okay.
since
Mm-hmm.
Seventh-day Adventists they go on Saturdays, so we would go
Yeah.
sometimes with them. But then most times we went with my mom on Sundays to a
Oh.
non-denominational church, and
Okay.
so um, grew up going to that until think about high school is when um, they kind of let us not go if we didn't want to or whatever. And
Mm.
so I stopped going for a bit, and then when I got to college, I found a uh, non-denominational church right on campus at ASU where I was, and started attending that and going there again. Um, and then really got involved in that church, which was also a non denominational church.
Okay. So, I know the Seventh-day Adventists are what we call, they hold to Arminianism, where they claim you can't lose your salvation. The Catholic Church, where you can lose your salvation, sorry. Catholic Church, similarly. Um, the non-denominational church your mom went to, they held that same view.
There, the non denominational churches we went to was more of the um, Calvinist view, where it's like once saved, always saved. So
Uh-huh.
the churches that we went to that were non-denominational leaned more towards that view.
Right. Okay. That so that so you're saying that the non-denominational hold more towards the one that you meant that your mom meant to was more towards the Calvinistic
Yeah, yeah.
thinking. Okay. What about speaking in tongues? Were
Oh,
they into that?
there was a lot of that um, at my mom's church when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
They had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of speaking in tongues. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, falling down from the Holy Spirit, all of that.
Or being slain in the Holy Spirit.
Mhm,
Being slain. So they will have people standing up behind the person's. Okay.
mhm.
Okay. Okay. the but the non-denominational church you mentioned after when you was in college and you went to this non that they held that similar view, both views,
No,
sort of.
so the one my mom goes to is a Haitian church, a Haitian
Ah,
non-denominational one, and so
okay.
that's where they really believe in speaking in tongues and
Uh-huh.
falling in the Holy Spirit. The one I went to in college was an American church, and so
Okay.
they they didn't really do the they kind of did the speaking in tongues, but it wasn't during um it wasn't
The
like
main service.
the service, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
more like they had once a week on Thursday night, they had a prayer night. And so
Ah,
they would speak in tongues during the prayer night,
okay.
but never during a service or sermon.
You're right.
And then they don't do the one I went to, the American one. They don't like have people falling down in the spirit. Um, and then let me see, they do. Oh, but that one I went to in college, they do emphasize
Mm-hmm.
um, prophetic speaking.
Yeah,
So they would have during the prayer nights, people would prophesy and speak things.
right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Right. So, okay. So they were more in terms of controlled in terms of the speaking in tongues. There, it happened and so on like the other church where they just will do it at any time.
Hmm.
Okay. So, all right, describe for us, moving on. So, okay, did you all, will you say you all were forced or you had to go as children? Your parents said you have to go to church with us, you have to go to Sunday school or Sabbath school.
Um, when we were young, when we were kids, little,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't think they ever said it like you have to go with us. It was
Mm-hmm.
just more of an expectation, like
Mm-hmm.
we were still me and my brother were still kids. We were young, so obviously they're not gonna leave us home by ourselves. So
Right. Okay.
it was just an expectation. We would get up, get ready, and
Mm-hmm.
go to church with my parents.
So, right. So in terms of at home indoctrination, uh, your parents, something about like in my case, my parents had this thing of telling you, teaching you the teachings of the church or the doctrines of the church and the Bible
Hmm.
and so on, and trying to impress because they felt this is the way to raise a child.
Hmm.
But was that done in your case, in your you and your brother? Because I heard you said we, so you were referring to you and your brother.
Yeah, yeah. To me and my younger brother, yeah. Um, so I wouldn't say necessarily that was the case. My parents were more the type of parents when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to um, the church and spirituality, they
Mm-hmm.
kind of let the church do the teaching, and like they didn't really. It's not like they had us sit down and do Bible study every night or prayer
Oh,
every night or whatever. like they would talk to us and say, you should pray about this or you should do this, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not like something they really sat down and taught us. They more just like brought us to church and kind of wanted to let the church do the teaching.
Oh, okay, okay. Because we used to have my parents' home, they would have um Bible study and what we call devotions.
Hmm.
Some days, like especially Sunday, early Sunday or evening, Sunday evening, having devotions. And as my very very fundamentalist, and so she used to more so than my dad encouraged having these times what she called the family devotions.
Yeah,
Right.
and we didn't really have family devotions, so yeah, they just kind of let the church do the teaching, which is probably a
Mm-hmm.
good thing for me. Made it because I feel like that helped to not indoctrinate me as much as some people. Like I've heard some people who grew up in Christianity and family prayer times and Bible studies,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just like, if I had that level of indoctrination, I don't know if I would have been able to leave quite like I.
Mm.
So luckily I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have that, but they also, I think my parents also just kind of tried to lead by example. So even though they weren't telling us,
Mm-hmm.
read our Bible every day, make sure we do a Bible study, I did see my dad doing that every morning. Every morning he woke up
Mm-hmm.
4 a.m. or 5 a.m. and he would be uh, in the kitchen praying and reading his Bible before he got ready for work. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of we saw the model of what they did.
Mm. And did y'all model after what they did later on?
Later on, yeah, yeah, I did, or I tried to. No, I was never very good at being consistent with reading it every day, but I tried.
Mm. So in terms of conversion, um, the where will how will you have described your conversion to Christianity or being born again?
So that happened, I would say, my freshman year of college, when I
Mhm.
started to go to that church in college.
So,
Um,
so what led you to that to take that more seriously?
Um, I think it's because I just got really involved in that church. I had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
friends who also college students at ASU who went to that church and
Mm-hmm.
got really involved in what they were doing and everything. And I ended up
Mm-hmm.
uh, doing a Bible study in my dorm room with
Mm-hmm.
one of the church leaders and a few other uh, girls in my dorm that I was living in. We were
Mm-hmm.
doing Bible studies and talking about the gospel and Jesus and all of that. And um, I remember one night, one of the Bible studies, one of the campus leaders asked me, like, if I was ready to surrender my life to Jesus, put my whole faith and trust in Him. And at that time, I didn't do it because I was like, I was more along the lines of thinking, I don't know, what if what if God calls me to do something I don't want to really do? So maybe I'll just
Ah,
surrender later on. Like, let me do what I want first, then I'll surrender later on. Was kind of my thinking. And
uh-huh.
then um, and then in college spring semester,
Mm-hmm.
um, during spring break, I was still in the dorms during spring break. And I remember one night I just woke up in the middle of the night and
Yeah.
having a really hard time breathing. I was having a lot of breathing trouble
Mm-hmm.
that night. And which is part of my disability that I have. I have issues with my lungs and, you know, sometimes get
Mm-hmm.
enough breath. And so I remember that night I had a lot of trouble breathing. And I just remember thinking, I don't want to die without doing God's will.
Mm.
You know, it we never know how long we have. I could live till tomorrow, next week, or 10 years, but I don't want to die without giving my life to Christ and doing His will in my life. So that was the night I surrendered and gave my life to you, Jesus. And then
Mm.
kind of shared that in my Bible study group next time. And then got baptized that summer, baptized again. That's,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah. Adult baptism, full
yeah,
immersion.
yeah, full immersion adult baptism. The first one was when I was a baby, when my mom was still Catholic.
Right, right. Yeah. Literally being infant baptism
Yeah.
according to the Catholic. Right. So you said then your what you just described there, some persons because of some event in their life, they are being told about you grew up in this Christian home, you're being told this is the way, this is the way, but you don't really take it seriously until something then happens
Right.
that then you think because of that indoctrination, that
Mm-hmm.
sort of indoctrination, you
Yeah.
say, okay, this I need to get my life right, God,
Yeah.
because otherwise I'm gonna end up going to hell and so on. So it's almost like I would say a kind of a fear tactic
Mm-hmm.
to get you to come to their God
Yeah.
as such. Yeah,
Yeah.
because some people, because they're told, oh, you're really, uh, let's say they've been drinking, they've been really drunk, or become an alcoholic, and they are told, every even just hearing about this salvation message,
Mm-hmm.
they get this thing where then they realize, oh gosh, I need help, but they think that the help comes from giving their life to Christ
Yeah.
rather than using actual going to a place that can actually apply scientific medical principles that can really help them.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So but then after you did, were you involved? Now you got quote unquote more serious.
Mm-hmm.
You got involved with youth groups and such.
Yeah, so I got involved quite a bit with my church. I served in several different areas. So I was a greeter. I worked in children's ministry doing the Sunday school lessons for kids. Um,
Mhm.
I worked in the church office doing administrative work. I worked on some of their social media stuff. Their magazine, my church had a small magazine. They put out, I think, quarterly or maybe twice a year for students, and I worked on that. So yeah, I got pretty involved with a lot of stuff they were doing. They would do different events on campus that I would help with as well. So yeah.
Right. So, was there any arguments, any arguments that the church gave or that you heard from Christianity that kind of convinced you at the point in time that this thing is true? What what went on? Was there anything that they said that you thought, okay, this is true at that point in time?
Um, I don't. It's hard to say because I had believed it was all true, but that was,
Mm-hmm.
I think, because you know, growing up every Sunday, going to church and hearing it and having it preached as if it's the
Mm-hmm.
truth, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, I never really questioned whether it was true or not. I
Mm-hmm.
did question some things growing up because I would read my Bible from time to time, even as a kid. And so there were
Mm-hmm.
some things that I questioned that I never really got answers to. But I always
Mm-hmm.
figured, I'll find out one day when I get to heaven. I can ask
Mm.
all these questions for myself,
I,
you know.
yeah.
'Cause
I uh-huh.
I remember as a kid, like, because, I still went to public school, so I still had uh, scientific education, right?
Right.
I still learned science. I still learned
Mm-hmm.
about evolution. I still learned about um, dinosaurs and stuff, which was one of my questions as a kid. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, why does the Bible never mention dinosaurs? Like,
Okay.
that would be something big enough to mention in the Bible. Like, where would, like, because you read Genesis and God
Mm-hmm.
creates the whole
Right.
and the plants and
Yeah.
animals and everything, and He creates man. And I'm like, but wait, the dinosaurs were here before humans. So why doesn't it say that?
So okay. So that's interesting because that uh from what you just said there, it seems as if you will say then that you accepted the science and the science caused you then to question
Mm-hmm.
that part of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Because normally I know in evangelical circles or fundamentalist circles, it is this is the so okay. Now I should ask. Your church have believed in the inspiration of the Bible and took it literally, or they felt that there it was more some of those stories were figurative. Did they believe in creationism as described in the Genesis story?
Yes, they did, which was interesting. I never, I don't know, I never thought to ask like how
Mhm.
they reconcile that, because I know with, at least for the church I went to in college, a lot of it was college students, right? And so a lot of them, um, even though they're a part of the church, they did uh, they did learn about evolution and all of that and knew
Mhm.
about it and stuff. And I remember one time, one of my closest friends, she was
One
actually,
minute. You said that they posted stuff about evolution in college. That's what you just said.
wait, say that again. They
No,
what?
you said who posted something about evolution?
No, I said they knew about, like, because these were all college students that were
Oh,
attending the church, so they knew
okay.
evolution and science and all that. Like,
So this college was not a Christian college then. It was
no,
like
no,
a
no,
general
no.
public college.
Yeah, it was ASU, so
Okay.
Arizona State University.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was a secular
Yeah.
college. The
Okay.
the mascot was the Sun Devils, which I remember
Right.
some Christians wanting to change
Uh-huh.
change it because
Oh,
you
they,
know
they,
we're
they
the
had a satanic they had a satanic panic about that.
yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Oh gosh.
But
Go ahead.
yeah, so I was saying I remember uh my one of my close friends, she was the one who actually um
Mhm.
invited me to that church on the campus and
Wow.
invited me to a Bible study when I
Mm-hmm.
was on campus. Um, so my close friend there at the time, I remember she was
Mm-hmm.
talking to another kid on campus that we were trying to invite to church, and they were asking questions, and she was kind of explaining how she
Mm-hmm.
viewed evolution in relation to the Bible and stuff. I can't remember exactly what she was saying, but she kind of
Right.
talked about how there's like micro evolution and then macro evolution, and I guess God is
Right.
a certain type, or I don't remember exactly how she explained it, but that was the first time I think I heard someone trying to uh,
Mm-hmm.
reconcile or
Right.
apologetics to kind of
Mm-hmm.
mesh the two views.
Right. Because I know, yeah, even when I was in the school and heard about evolution, they will talk about, I remember reading some books on creationism that talk about they accept microevolution, but not that's creationists accept microevolution, but not the macro evolution, the big changes.
Hmm.
And it's not all is evolution. It is not really micro as such, is because remember evolution is something that goes on for millions of years and the result of many micro evolutions occurring that eventually you get something completely different,
Yeah.
maybe from that other thing that first started, the first ancestor
Hmm.
of the other thing. So right, because when I grew up, I was like, as you said before, you accepted what your parents told you about this thing being true. And
Hmm.
normally that's the case for children growing up in their parents' religion or in the particular country where that religion is dominant. They tend to believe, okay, this is the case because my parents are not going to lie to me or so. And then if my parents are lying to me, if they give a pastor, these people, eh, well, yeah, it got to be true,
Hmm.
right? And so in terms of that, right? I know many Christians, fundamentalist Christians, tend to say Genesis 1 and 2 is absolutely true. Evolution is not real. And when they say evolution, I mean macroevolution, even despite they not having an understanding of evolution
Hmm.
at all and misrepresent, because that's what the apologetics does, misrepresent
Yeah.
the particular thing they are apologizing against,
Hmm.
right? Um, so that's why I was surprised when you said you start questioning, but that's good. You start questioning that dinosaurs were before.
Mm-hmm.
human beings according to the science. So how is it that is not mentioned in there as part of the created creatures?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
There were things that I
So,
questioned here and there
mm-hmm,
when I read the Bible, parts of the Bible. But
mm-hmm.
like I said, I never really uh, focused on it for too long.
For too long, right?
I always kind of figured, you know what, I'm not going to know until I get up
You
there
get to
to
heaven.
heaven and can ask
Yeah.
my questions. So
Yeah,
it's,
I my thinking was similar at one point where you say, okay, there has to be an answer. God is going to give me this answer
yeah.
soon. I said, Lord God, show me what was the answer to this, because this is not making sense here.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, eventually God is going to show me. But I didn't think about it in terms of heaven. I was more like, no,
Yeah.
soon,
Yeah.
right? But
I
okay,
wanted
I
them
understand
now.
that. Pardon?
I said, yeah, I wanted answers now, but I figured I wouldn't.
But then you figure, yeah.
Yeah.
But you say that those things kind of stuck at the back of your mind and was there constantly
Mhm.
kind of eating away, even though you didn't really pay full attention, it was there. And
Yeah.
then when you got um as you approach question even more, that those things came up again.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
They were
Mhm.
always kind of in the back of my mind. And, that's why I was going to say there's that verse that is always the answer that I get when
Mhm.
when people uh, when I try to ask people questions
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
they can't answer. It always comes back to, well, God's ways are higher than our ways. What we can never understand.
Mhm.
One day he'll explain everything. He'll tell us everything. So that's why I kind of always just chalked it up to, okay, I'm not gonna get it now. His ways are higher, but one day when I meet him face to face, I'll be able to understand and ask.
So,
So
so, so, in other words, then they were saying, take it by faith,
I was what? I didn't.
take to accept it by faith.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty much was taught to accept it just accept by faith.
Or faith. Faith is the excuse or reason people give when they don't have good good evidence for their claim. That's how I say us, because they don't have good evidence, and so they say, well, they gotta take it by faith, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Someone just said beach, welcome beach, and let me shout out to SR Secularity and beach and Sarah, thanks for coming. Beach says, God, I got told, right? She says, I got told I will find out when I get to heaven, similar
Yeah,
to what you were saying before, the
yeah,
usual apologetic,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, and
God would tell me how.
God will tell me himself.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, that's it, the usual thing. So it kind of shut down questioning. So as you went along through college, how long how long was it that you were a Christian before you uh, be converted? And then when will you say that you actually started deconstructing the Christianity? And what caused you to start looking in that direction instead?
Yeah. So, from the time I uh, gave my life to Christ as a Christian, my freshman year in college, that was in 2009. So that was back in 2009
In
and
2000. Mm-hmm.
and then I
So
started
wait, wait, hold on. So 2009 is when you
when I
been in college, when you, well, yeah, when you became born again.
right.
Right. Uh-huh.
And thank you, Beach. Um, and then in 2020, so just a couple years ago, um,
Uh-huh.
at the end of 2020, like November, December, that's when I started deconstructing.
So what caused you to start that deconstruction? What was there an event or a number of events in your life that caused you to start saying, but wait, something is just ain't right here. This
Yeah.
just didn't seem right. Yeah. But what was that? If you
So
don't mind sharing.
that was one of the times where, you know, it was um, COVID, obviously, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot of time being at home. So I started to read my
Mm-hmm.
Bible a lot more. And,
Right. Oh, Lord.
you know,
Reading of the Bible more.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
that's what always starts it. So I
Yeah.
was reading my Bible more and coming across things.
Mhm.
And I kept trying to say, okay, I'm not going to understand it now. I'll have to wait until I get to
Mhm.
understand. But there were some things I just couldn't get. And then uh,
Mm.
the topic of slavery was one.
Oh, yeah.
So, slavery in the Bible. And I was like, couldn't wrap my head around why God would allow that. And then, of course, you know me, I'm going to try to
Mhm.
um, research things when I can. So I was
Right.
trying to look at Christian pastors online and
Mhm.
sermons online
Mhm.
to figure out the topic of slavery. And, one of the Christian pastor YouTubers,
Mhm.
one of his videos that I found on the topic of slavery
Mhm.
basically explained it as indentured servitude, right? Where it was,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm.
they did it to pay off a debt. It was only for, it was only meant to be for a few years, and then they would uh, go be released from their indentured servitude and all
Mhm.
of that. And so it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So I kind of went along with the indentured servitude was what I was thinking um, was the slavery in the Bible, and it's not like what we saw here in America. And
Mhm.
so, of course, thank you, YouTube algorithm, because I was doing all those searches, YouTube algorithm showed me on my homepage a video
Mhm.
from the Atheist Experience.
Mm.
Matt Dillahunty was debating atheists about slavery in
Mhm.
the Bible. And Matt
Mhm.
pulled up the Bible and started reading verse from verse, the exact verse, how God commanded to treat slaves, that you
Yeah.
beat them as long as they don't die within
They
the
don't die within, yeah.
they're considered your property and all that.
Property. Yeah.
He pulled up those verses, and I was like, my brain couldn't handle it at the moment. I was like, no
Mhm.
way, it does not say that. So I went and grabbed my Bible and looked up the exact verses he was talking about,
Uh-huh.
and I read it for myself, and I was like, it actually does say this. What the
Yeah. Yeah.
fuck? And
And the thing too is that yes, there's some parts that is talking quote unquote like indentured servitude, but there was Leviticus
right.
25. See, there's the dishonesty,
Hmm.
dishonesty of the apologetics. when
Mhm.
it comes to these things. They give you one part, but they don't tell you about the other part because in Leviticus 25 it talks about persons you can own slaves from the foreigners around you. The
Mhm.
indentured servitude, quote unquote, they're talking about is for Hebrew slave.
Right.
And
The
then
is
the Hebrew slave had to be released.
right.
But the Leviticus and Deuteronomy talk about, and I guess part of Exodus to
Exodus.
talk about the getting your slaves from those around you, and they are your property for life and can be
Yeah.
passed on to your children.
Yeah.
So when they saw those sort of things, too, yes, it is like these people are being dishonest,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
So
so that indentured servitude crap,
yeah.
they are being dishonest about it because they know in other parts it says that you can own the slaves. And whether or not is indentured
Mhm.
servitude, those people are still considered slaves for that period of time. Then the daughters, then there's something about the daughters are a way to keep the
Mhm.
slave man in Exodus. If the master gives the person on the quote unquote indentured servitude a wife,
Mhm.
which very likely would be probably a slave
Mhm.
female
Mhm.
or slave girl, then the slave girl cannot the person, the wife can't leave with
Husband. Yeah.
the husband, the Hebrew husband, if if he wants to leave.
Yeah.
But if he wants to say, oh, he loves his master and blah blah blah, then he becomes a slave for life.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of trick to keep your slave, kind of like a kind of trick to keep your Hebrew
Mhm.
slave. But right, but yes. So you were saying right. So yeah. When you realize this, things start unraveling.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Uh huh.
um, when I realized that, I couldn't believe it, and I was just like, "What in the world? What the heck?" And I kept thinking, you know, we're always taught in church and um, sermons and stuff that we are all God's children, right? We are all His children. He wants a relationship with all of us. He sent His
Mm-hmm.
Son to die for every one of us. He loves us, all that stuff. So I kept thinking, okay, if God is so loving and caring, He wants a relationship with all of us. He cares about all of us. We are all supposed to be His children. Why would he tell some of his children that it is okay to enslave, beat, and treat the others as property? That doesn't make sense
Yeah.
with the loving God that we're taught about.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Right. So before we continue from there, that you just raised that there. Um, were you told that even with the slavery that there wasn't slavery in the Testament or so?
that there, say it again, there
That
was
there
a,
wasn't slavery in the Testament, that um none of the epistles or none of the New Testament writers
um,
condone slavery?
no, I mean, I wasn't really told that there wasn't slavery in the New Testament. Obviously, we can
Mhm.
read it, and there's still slavery in the New Testament. But I do know a lot of times a lot of Christians will be like, "Oh, but that was the Old Testament. God came and did a new covenant and stuff, and that was in the Old
Mhm.
Testament."
Uh-uh.
Which we still see slavery in the New Testament. Jesus still told.
Right.
But regardless whether it was the New Testament or Old Testament, it still doesn't
It's
change the
all.
fact that you are saying that God is supposed
Mm-hmm.
to be a loving
Perfect.
father,
Mm-hmm.
a loving, perfect father for all of us, and yet he still allows this type of slavery, for some of his quote unquote children, right? So it didn't make sense.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Very good point. And then you said that because right in the New Testament there is in the epistles where Paul said, "Servants obey."
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah, servants, slaves obey your masters,
right.
for
Even
this
the
is the
cruel
thing,
ones.
and so on. Yeah, and so on. Right. So it does still support slavery
And
in
even Jesus, when he used parables
with
with
slaves.
slaves in them. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
if
Right.
this was something God was so against, you would think Jesus would be like, "Oh, hey, let me correct you guys all
Perfect.
about this."
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, the so that was one major thing. What about genocide? Genocide in the Bible, was that one of the other issues you had at that particular point in time with I think where God told to go and kill all the pregnant women and the
Yeah, I actually hadn't gotten to that part at the time. The other thing, I mean, slavery was the thing that unraveled everything. But the other thing, along with that, was just the way women were treated in the Bible.
Oh,
And
okay.
how,
Or
like,
just 1 minute, Vanessa. Just keep
mhm.
talking. I just our finger, but keep talking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so just the way women were treated and how, like, I forget what book it was in, but in the Old Testament, there's a part where it talks about um, when you uh, when they went off to war and um, captured their enemies. Uh, they were told to put to death um, the men and put to death all the kids and stuff. But if trying to remember the exact verse, it was like if you see a woman that uh, from the captive nation that you want for yourself, you can pretty much take her and like to be uh, force her to be your wife, right? There's I know I have the I know I have the first highlighted because that was one thing that I was also like, what the heck? Um, but there was a lot in here. And even before that, I kept thinking, like, why is it, why does it seem like, because the church I went to always said, the churches I've been to always viewed women as being equal. So, not, I mean, there was still a hierarchy and still the men were supposed to lead, but it was never like the women were never like treated as less than or whatever. But then reading the Bible, there were a lot of verses that came up where I'm like, women in here are treated very much as less than. Um, so I don't know why no one ever really talked about that or spoke on that and like explain like why God would, especially when it would be like um, for something so natural. Like I remember one verse was talking about how when a woman's on her period, she's unclean and she has to um, do this sort of atonement or ritual.
Cleansing ritual.
Yeah, and I was like, that's something that's so natural that we were created with. So why does she have to atone for something that God created her with? It just didn't make sense to me, and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I was looking for the. I think maybe is this it? Well, this was one of the verses, but this wasn't the one I was looking for. But in Numbers it talks about, therefore kill every male among the little ones, kill every woman who has known a man intimately, but all the girls who have not
Mm-hmm.
known a man intimately, spare for yourselves.
Yeah.
Um, so
The red.
just verses like that, and there was another one, which I can't find right now. I know I highlighted, but basically, just the way women are seen and treated, um, in the Bible was another thing that just.
The misogyny.
Hmm.
Yeah. Really misogynistic.
Yeah,
Things said, let's see, pull up some of the other comments that are in there referring to what you were just talking about. Um, we said Lot offering up his daughter's brother to her from the first time she
yeah,
heard it. Apologetic says he knew they will say no,
but shouldn't
but
even.
shouldn't even have thought it. Yeah.
There's
Uh,
um, allowed to take any young virgin females as. Yep.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's why you just described there. You
Hmm.
know, and it's basically rape
Hmm.
because it's against their
Hmm.
will and they have no say. So is a form of rape. And then Christians, you try to think Christians about approaching about rape and so on. They tend to try, as you said, a lot of the apologetics and so on, right? So you have so first it was the okay, you have the slavery, you have the misogyny,
Hmm.
and we have this rape. That's- oh, and the walls are breaking down, right?
Yeah.
You know that song that Christians are sing, and the walls keep tumbling down. In this case, yeah, the walls are
I
tumbling down.
totally
Okay.
down. Yeah. And so, um, it was at that point I was just like, uh, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so um, I tried to figure out, well, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I am, this was thousands of years ago. So maybe I'm not
Mhm.
understanding the context. Because, Christians love to say, oh, you
Mhm.
got to get the context, or you got to
Yeah.
um, understand what certain words mean, because they translate differently from what it originally was. So it's like, okay, I want to talk with a church leader who has studied this, who knows this, and
Mhm.
ask my questions about this, and ask about slavery, the type of slavery we saw, not the indentured servitude, and ask
Mhm.
all these questions. And
Mhm.
so I did meet with one of the women in my church,
Mhm.
um, who did a lot of study on this, and I think she has a theology degree or something, and
Right.
and she studied it in like the original language and stuff, and so like
Mhm.
um, I talked with her a couple times and asked her questions and all of this, and even she couldn't come up with any real answers for me. And even she admitted that, she's struggled with some of this in the past too, with
Mm-hmm.
what some of the verses in the Bible has said, is she struggles with it. And she gave an example of like, she tried to give an example of like, we can't see the bigger picture because we're not God. We can't see the bigger picture. So, if God tells someone to cut off their leg and they cut off their leg, and we're thinking, oh, that's horrible, but we're not seeing that um, the reason God said that was because there was like a huge gangrene thing on his leg or whatever, but we can see
But
it. So it's the apologetics.
oh gosh, because remember there's this guy who made a promise to God. If he won the battle, the first thing that comes through his door, he's going to sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
He won the battle, and his daughter was the first thing that came through the door. And God did not stop. People will say, well, Abraham, and you raised Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, God stopped Abraham, didn't really want Abraham to kill Isaac, and so God provided a lamb. In this case, God didn't provide not a thing, and
Yeah.
did not say to the person, no, don't do this. You don't need to do this, you
Mm.
know? So that apologetic that she gave just ain't working.
No.
Just ain't working. And that is what I call oh gosh, special pleading. Because if another person gave that apologetic from another religion,
Mm-hmm.
they would say that God is an evil, wicked God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they are special pleading for their own God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. The apologetics never work, never makes any sense. But they always try try to do it, which is funny because as I was deconstructing, I started
Mhm.
watching more videos, more atheist videos, and I found more atheist YouTubers
Mhm.
that did a lot of videos on the Bible and Christianity and all this stuff. And one of my favorite ones that I found was Shannon Q. And on Shannon's channel, she did a couple videos, which basically was my breaking point to saying, yeah, I don't believe the Bible is God's word anymore. But she did a couple videos. One was with Ian Mills, who
Mhm.
is a Bible scholar, I believe. Um, and they were talking about how some of the books in the Bible in the New Testament, how they were chosen, how they came to be in the Bible. Um, so some of what he said led me to, oh, wow, okay. So there's no way this could be the inerrant, infallible, inspired
World.
God
Mhm.
when you have men choosing what books they're going to keep and what books are not going to make it into the Bible. And then she did another interview with uh, gosh, I forget her name right now. Laura, I think. I
Mhm.
forget her last name, but Shannon Q did another interview with Laura, who is
Mhm.
also a Bible scholar. She actually has a podcast with Ian on the New Testament in the Bible.
Uh,
And so
Yeah.
he is another Bible scholar who she had on the show, and she was explaining how uh, apologetics just doesn't work, and she wished people would stop trying to use apologetics because
Mm-hmm.
um, the books in the Bible were, for one, they were never meant to be read all together, like, as one book cohesively, which is
Right.
which is why there's going to be um,
Contradiction.
contradictions and differences. They were never meant to be read as one book, as one story, or whatever. So that was one. And two, these were for people of that time. You
Mm-hmm.
And so, those some of those interviews I watched that she did, and then she did one with um, with Dr. Josh Bowen,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Dr.
and
Josh.
Laura as well, and they were talking specifically about slavery in the Bible, and I watched that one as well, and so those were kind of the pieces um, that made me go, you know what? There's no way this is God's word. This is His perfect, infallible, inerrant word given to man. There's absolutely no way. So I stopped believing in the Bible at that point, but I hadn't yet stopped believing in God. Um, so I was still, after that point, I was still kind of on the journey of, okay, well, what do I believe now if I don't even believe the Bible is true? What does that mean about God and about Jesus? What do I believe about that? And
Mm-hmm.
started doing a lot more research. I got connected with Recovering from Religion, which they are an amazing, amazing resource. I definitely think should be linked in the description. But yeah, I connected with someone from Recovering from Religion, and uh, I talked with someone and got invited into the online community, the online Slack community, and got to talk with
Mm-hmm.
others who were deconstructing and ask questions and stuff. And they have on their website a list of resources on all different topics on Christianity. So I looked into a lot of those. I looked at their deconstructing
Mm-hmm.
stories. I looked at their resources on heaven and hell,
Mm-hmm.
on different topics and different matters, uh,
Mm-hmm.
Christianity, um, and just eventually, I ended up I ended up going. You know what? I don't think there is a God out there. Certainly, definitely not the Christian God of the Bible that I was raised to believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I was at the point where I'm like, if there's any gods out there, I have yet to see that or know it. So I'm kind of just gonna work on the basis that there is none
Mm-hmm.
until I get evidence that there is.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Some each had a question. Did Vanessa Marie get taught the Bible by bouncing around the books, verse here, a verse there?
Pretty much. If you missed the beginning of the live stream, I was just explaining that growing up, went to church with my parents every Sunday, and I pretty much learned whatever the the sermon was about for that week, and most churches kind of bounce around um, from topic to topic, and they kind of just shared the good parts of the Bible. Um, so yeah, I kind of growing up learned about the Bible by bouncing around from verse to verse. I did at one point try to do the whole Bible in a year and read like from beginning to end um, when I was still a Christian, and couldn't get through it. There were some pretty boring books, some interesting books in the Bible, but a lot of boring ones as well. So yeah, kind of bounced around.
Yeah. Because usually that's how it start out, but then you start realizing that certain things are not adding it. Start to investigate more and just
Yeah.
read the Bible more. These when I was a research.
Well, I mean,
uh,
I should. I was a psych major, so we had to learn how to do research.
Research, right, right, and that helped greatly. So when you so so when it is that you say then you done with this.
Um, when I was completely done with it, that was like,
Yeah.
uh, didn't take that long. It was probably beginning of 2021. Um, yeah, around the spring probably of 2021 when I was like just completely done. Um, so it didn't take me that long, but I've since realized that because I have ADHD, one of the things that happens is when I get into a topic, I get hyper focused and I will try to learn as much as I can about that topic in a really short amount of time. And so I will like spend all day, all day hours, several days, just watching uh, anything I can come by, reading
Mm-hmm.
whatever I can get my hands on and come by, and
Mm-hmm.
just absorbing and taking in as much as I can. So I pretty
Mm-hmm.
much so from the start of deconstructing, like I said, was the end of 2020, and then I pretty much
Mm-hmm.
spring of 2021 is when I was like, yeah, I'm done.
That's when you realize you're atheist or agnostic. Or,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I I was like, I mean, I'm still there's a lot that I'm still learning and I'm still taking in, but
right.
by that point, I had learned enough to say this is not
Mm-hmm.
real, this is not real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you didn't go to another religion or thing before.
No, no, I actually did,
Okay.
which is a little bit surprising, I guess, in a sense. Probably because I kind of stumbled into atheism, finding all these
Mm-hmm.
YouTube YouTubers and resources and stuff, and started thinking more critically, and so that's why I never got into another religion. But I remember before when I was a Christian, because uh, I'm a huge fantasy reader. I love things that are like fantasy and magical and all of that. And I always thought like I was always interested in like witchcraft and paganism and all.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that would be so cool to learn about and stuff. And I was like, you know what? If I wasn't a Christian, I might be Wiccan. And, but I never went down the Wiccan route. So,
Okay. What has been the hardest part of your former belief system to let go? Question from SR.
yeah, the hardest part of my formal belief system to let go of, um, I think the hardest part to let go of, which has taken me a while, was just not not believing in myself or that I was ever good enough for things. Because
Yeah.
with Christianity, they teach that we're born with the sinful nature and
Mm-hmm.
nothing we can ever do is good enough. So God had to send his son to die. So basically, we're worthless beings, and God is the only good one, right? And so, um, I think that was the hardest part to kind of change in my mind for me. That like, no, I am good enough, um, and this was something I talked about with my therapist as well, because and I shared it a little bit in the Facebook group that we're in, how everything good I had accredited to God, right? Anything that happened in my life that was good, anything I accomplished, it wasn't because of me or my hard work. It was because God gave me the strength or God helped me through it or, whatever. But then anything negative or anything bad that happened, I
Mm-hmm.
attributed to myself. Like I didn't do enough, I didn't try hard enough, um, I didn't work hard enough, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty much, um, I think, the hardest for me to kind of change.
God knew when he made those two people that no one ever would be good enough. It's a trap. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, religion loves to teach that humans are broken and sick. Is the carrot and stick
yeah,
and carrot or carrot and stick thinking.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Um, I just received some sad news. And I need to make a phone call. So yes, Vanessa, can you sum up and you have some final words of wisdom for us here?
Yeah, yeah, I guess to kind of sum up and close everything is I would say, you know, think critically and whenever questions arise, um, try to look more deeply into it. Don't just take the answer of, oh, we will never know until we get to heaven, or God's ways are higher than our ways. We can never know.
Mm-hmm,
Do your own research, research things for yourself, research the Bible,
mm-hmm,
research Christianity, Jesus, everything,
mm-hmm.
come to your own conclusions on it all.
Right, right. Very good words of wisdom to take, because that's how many of us have come out of Christianity and religion by investigating, actually doing the reading, and realize, this is a bunch of bullshit. Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
Just and all the apologetics that are being made, we realize there's a bunch of apologetics trying to hold on to religion that's not true, that's not, it has no good evidence for any of evidence for itself, neither good evidence for any existence of any deity, any God. So thank you, Vanessa, very much for being here and sharing your deconvergence story. It has been very inspiring. And I know a lot of us can identify with that, your experience and deconverging. And yes, it's unique for you. It's unique. It's your experience, and there's similarities across people's experience in deconverting.
Mhm.
And so continue the good work and continue pushing, yes, to get people to think, because it's about teaching people that they need to practice thinking,
Yeah,
through what you're being taught, even as an atheist, you employ skepticism.
yeah.
Even when you're atheist, still employ skepticism, what you're being told, investigate
Also,
continually to make sure that you have the facts and
yeah.
you
Also,
want to know what's
read
true.
read A Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. That's a
Oh
great,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yes.
That's a
Skeptics
good one.
like to be first. All right. So B said thank you,
Thank
Vanessa
you.
Marie, for Philip Wood. This is over soon. All right. Thanks, SR and Beach, for being here.
Uh,
Thanks for the support.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. So sorry to have to cut it short. This is an interesting conversation. I don't know you all understand. Thanks very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.